Hello, everybody. This is Pascal from Neutrality Studies, and today I'm talking to Professor Hannes Jung, a German emeritus professor from Hamburg University, staff member of DESY, member of CERN, and the founder of Science4Peace. The Science4Peace Forum tries to promote the idea of scientific collaboration as a driver for peace. It was created early after the war broke out in Ukraine in 2022 in reaction to the decision by CERN and DESY to stop collaborations with Russia and Belarus. Their activities is what we want to discuss today. So, Professor Jung, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the possibility to speak about the Science4Peace Forum here and at the Neutrality Studies. It's a real great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for taking the time and also for your initiative. I think we have never needed voices for peace from anywhere more than we need it now. And can you maybe talk to us about Science4Peace, what you're doing there and what the problem actually is? Because it seems science was supposed to connect the world, but now, like, even a lot of scientific institutions are cutting or have cut ties and are not building them up again, are they?
Yes. So the Science4Peace Forum was created as a reaction on the sanctions imposed by German and many European countries, the science institutions after the invasion of Russian troops into the territory of Ukraine in 2022. I think it was the first time ever that scientific cooperation and collaboration was put into question, at least the first time after the Second World War, when scientific cooperation was built up and treated as a means to cooperate and to talk to each other, even across political boundaries. It was, for example, CERN was founded in 1954 after the Second World War from scientists from countries who were at war against each other just a couple of years before. And it was built from the idea that one should perform scientific research independent of political boundaries, and one should use that as a means to be able to talk to each other and to build bridges. Similarly, it was with the research center in Hamburg and at DESY, where I have been working for a long time, which was founded in 1959 as a national research center. It called Deutsches Elektronensynchrotron. It's a accelerator center, originally built for particle physics. And already in the very early days, there were cooperations at that time with the German Democratic Republic and with Russian scientists. So even during the Cold War, there was communication possible and established. All that was immediately stopped after the invasion of Russian troops into the Ukraine territory in 2022. And it came as a big surprise to many of us. Just because we have been working together, we had very good cooperation and collaboration, and then immediately the cooperation was cut. At DESY, it was such that people from Russia had to leave the institute. Their email addresses were cut. They were no longer allowed to participate, and it went even further that common publication with Russian scientists were not allowed anymore. It still continues until today that conferences where Russian scientists participate with their affiliation of a Russian university, participation of DESY staff, people and members is not allowed. So there is a big damage done in the cooperation with scientists all over the world. And it continued also at CERN. CERN was a bit moderate in the beginning. it just put cooperation on hold, did not cut all the ties, but then in end of 2024, the cooperation agreements with Russian institutes, Russian universities was not extended. The contract was running out and it was not extended. Only the cooperation agreement with the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research near Dubna, which is also an international institute, that was continued still under the sanctions, under the restrictions. This meant that all the contribution of Russian scientists to the Large Hadron Collider and at CERN, the LHC, and also the experiments was cut, and all the financial investment from Russia had to be replaced. And moreover, the knowledge and the contribution of Russian scientists to the analysis of data, but also to the understanding of the big detectors had to be replaced. They played a very important role in developing and understanding of the detector and the measurements, and that had to be replaced immediately. And this also created a lot of frustration by the Russian colleagues, because we were working nicely together until 2022. Then there was these sanctions imposed, and then 2 years later they were essentially thrown out of the cooperation with CERN. This has, of course, dramatic consequences on scientific cooperation in general, but also on future projects, because which country would like to participate in a common scientific project, invest resources, invest a lot of money, if they fear that at some stage they might be thrown out because of some political arguments. One also has to see that in the context that CERN is, and the experiments is cooperating with Israel. For example, Israel is member state of CERN, and Israel is now waging a terrible war against the population of Gaza and the West Bank. There is no discussion at all whether that is still in accordance with the contracts Israel has with CERN, or whether there is even knowledge being used which is obtained at CERN and maybe applied in the war. To be clear, I'm very much against sanctions and restrictions in scientific exchange, and I'm also against sanctioning science and scientific exchange with Israel. Of course, it has to be non-military communication and non-military cooperation, but if that is guaranteed, then we should not cut any scientific ties. But at least one should be able to talk to each other and say, this what is happening in the name of the state of Israel is not acceptable to other scientists. For example, there is a very interesting initiative from Israel, from academics in Israel, the so-called Black Flag initiative, which comes from inside the universities, and they find very clear words against the war in Gaza and say, we cannot claim we did not know what is happening, and they call very strongly to stop this war, because they fear that it will damage the reputation of the whole society in future. And I think this is something one has to support very, very strongly. And it's a drama that on one side, there was immediate reaction on the war started by Russia against Ukraine. But there was absolutely no reaction by the now since long ongoing war against the population in Gaza. So this is a kind of drama and sign of a very dramatic double standard, double moral in scientific institutions at the moment, and especially in scientific institutions at the West.
Yeah, it's clear double standards, like, and it's another instance in which Western institutions are integrated into the Western system of power, right? And in a sense, CERN should not be a Western institution. CERN should be an international institution, an international scientific institution.
Right.
It's located in Switzerland and it should have collaboration with everybody. But what we're seeing is that on the political level, it seems to be integrated into the not just the value system, but it's integrated into the power structures, the political power structures of the West.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Exactly. This is also what shocked so many of us, because we all believe that at least CERN should stay out of these political debates. And in all the history, CERN only imposed sanctions against Serbian and Montenegrin scientists during the Yugoslavian war, and they were not allowed to participate at CERN anymore. But this was on the basis of a resolution of the UN Security Council. This one still can question whether that is appropriate and correct, but this was on a very different level. Now there is no decision, no resolution from the Security Council or from the United Nations to sanction anything in science. So it was really for me a break in the policy of international science institution, and it's still not understandable what is really the aim behind, because cutting the scientific cooperation with Russian institutions did not change anything in the war against Ukraine. It was just a symbolic reaction, although quite a lot of Russian scientists were immediately launching a signature campaign, a petition against the war. So they were very clearly opposed against the war. Now they are forced to go back and are seeing also difficulties in their own countries. So it's at the end a very counterproductive measure what has been taken. Yes. So the situation has not improved until now. There was the hope that people could still participate at CERN through the affiliation with this Joint Institute for Nuclear Research, JINRA, in close to Moscow. But this was also made clear now that there is only a very strict policy that only people with only the affiliation to this institute are able and allowed to participate at CERN, and not any other which got an additional affiliation and still have their affiliation with Russian university. So there is a very restrictive policy made, and it's not understandable. It's of course the CERN Council who made the decision is to some extent representing the political views of the different states. There is a political and a scientific representative of each member state. But in principle, the directorate could have said, no, we don't follow the decision of the CERN Council. We don't agree with that. We believe in the values we believed before, and we just opposed to that. At least this would have been a sign, but just accepting it and saying, okay, then this is not understandable.
But can you explain to me, how is CERN run? So it's headquartered in Geneva, and how is it on the political level administered? Were no Russian and Chinese decision makers involved in like the board of CERN?
No. So CERN is or was a European institution, international European-wide institution. There are now, I think, 23 member states. It's mainly from European countries. There are observer states like the United States. Russia was also observer state, but they have no influence on the decisions of the CERN Council. The CERN Council is made of representatives of the member states, and they review the scientific program of CERN and then also make decisions on in which direction the policy is going. Then the directorate of CERN is essentially bound to the decisions of the CERN Council. But of course, they should have the possibility to express their own view and also being able to criticize if they believe the council is deciding in a different way. Mm. And that was a bit surprising that there was no public statement from anyone from the directorate against that. It was a bit different at DESY, for example. DESY is run as a national institute, and there the directorate themselves expressed that they want to enforce these sanctions against Russian scientists. Mm. So there was at least a reflection of the opinion of the directorate at DESY, although there was immediately a protest campaign against it, where many scientists declared that they see it differently and they are strictly against sanctioning Russian colleagues.
But so basically, CERN is, although not a political institution, of course, it is very much depending on funding. Do you know, or was there any talk of funding from European states being cut to CERN in case they don't comply with these restrictions?
And I don't think it was dead like that. Hmm. But of course, the people know who is paying how much to CERN, which country is paying how much to CERN, and if one or several of these states who pay the largest amount express a political opinion, it is clear then that this has a weight, and has a different weight than an opinion from a state who pays much less. I think it's not necessary to say, if you don't follow what we think, then we will cut. It's clear then that it will have consequences if decisions are taken against the explicit will of a major partners,
major donor country. So, yes. but overall, what you're saying is that the decision to cut ties with Russia was basically made by CERN after it became clear that this is not politically. It's currently in the current political environment. Russia should be excluded from all these different levels of society in Europe, and CERN just followed that trend. It wasn't necessarily an intervention from the European Union or somebody who said like, guys, we gotta go.
No. I think from European bodies was no direct intervention. Also from the governments, it was an immediate reaction in 2022, and then it was already positive that the council decided to keep the cooperation with this Institute General in Russia. Right, so there we had the hope that maybe things get better with time, but now it seems it did not. It's because there are still these very strong restrictions. I think it was mainly a decision by the policymakers, because there was also at CERN from the scientists, there was a rather big move against cutting ties, because I mean people have been working together for a very long time, and there was always exchange. For example, there is a documentation at CERN where they document the positive and fruitful collaboration with the, at that time, Soviet Union, going back to 1956. So it's a long tradition of cooperation, even when there were political tensions during all the time in the Cold War. And it was always taken as something very positive, that one can talk to each other, one can exchange ideas, and also try to understand what is in the thoughts of the other people. And I believe this is also something which made CERN so attractive to young students. I remember when I was a student and coming the first time to CERN, I was fascinated that I suddenly could talk to people from Russia, from Poland, from the GDR. Then this was at the time before '89, and it was just fascinating. I could sit in the cafeteria, drink a coffee or a glass of wine, and talk about physics, but also about political issues. It was unbelievable that this is possible, right? And I believe this fascination was for a lot of people, that one believed this is where we should go. We should talk to each other. We should try to understand. Also, even if we have different point of views, but we should listen and try to understand why do you think in that way, and give arguments why someone else is believing differently. But we should be able to talk, and it was an atmosphere of, wow, this is how it should be.
Mhm.
Right? And then it came as a shock when this was just cut.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what you're describing seems utterly reasonable to me, that scientists and just normal people would have an interest in actually getting to know the viewpoints of especially those that you usually can't meet. And so in this sense, like what we are seeing now is worse than the Cold War. It's the whole atmosphere is much more poisonous now than what it was even in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, but this also means, to me, the way to explain this from a social science perspective is that this is part of the logic of war. It's not just a political decision; it's a societal phenomenon that belongs to the gearing up, to the complete hardening, and to the dissociation of these nations. And this is of course highly dangerous.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I mean, this is this is the whole problematic at the moment, that instead of trying to at least listen to the other side and trying to understand, there is more the attitude, no, we don't talk to each other. And this is not a way, this is of course scientifically a complete nonsense and disaster. And it cannot lead to any fruitful solution if one doesn't listen to the other. I mean, all the big conflicts, all the wars have been ended by at least listening to the others and seeing that there are different interests and trying to see how it can be solved and how it can be how it can be resolved. So this is really a big disaster, and I believe, although the effect is rather small, what the Science for Peace forum has generally, but I think it's very important to keep these ties, to talk to other people. In the Science for Peace forum, for example, there are people from Russia, there are people from European countries, but there are also people from Ukraine. And of course, people have different opinions, but it is a forum where one can discuss and talk about things and try to understand. And this, I think, is absolutely essential.
It is. So tell me, how is Science for Peace organized? How are you making discussions among Russian, Ukrainian, European, Chinese scientists possible again?
I mean, it's organized in a very loose way. Essentially, everybody who is interested can subscribe to the forum and participate. And the discussions are just happening on different topics, then that people from the different countries participate and give their opinion. And of course, we take care that the discussion is in a respectful and acceptable way. But if people have different opinions, it's also fine to express that. And it happens, and I think it's absolutely good, because it helps also to understand the point of view of the other side.
Yeah.
If we just keep in our own bubble, it's bad.
I mean, sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit to the political side, but and then we're going to go back to Science for Peace. But the part of the problem is, of course, that the entire mindset at the moment in the West, and especially in Europe, is that discussions with Russia need to be ended as a form of punishment, as a form of pressure, and because whatever the Russians or whatever Russia says is a lie, right? So it's a Putin talking point. And it goes so far that even statements of facts are being rejected as talking points. I keep thinking that if Vladimir Putin could destroy the entire European Union or the everything by just stating tomorrow publicly that 2 plus 2 is 4, because it would force us to change our mathematical models. Because it doesn't go that far, but even statements of facts are not acceptable anymore. And this is like a hardening, and not just of the political level, it's a hardening of the European society toward this enemy in the East. And this is extremely unhealthy for this society.
Yes, that's definitely, yes.
Sorry, there's no question, but maybe do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I mean, this is also to some extent happening in the scientific communication, that now, after the rather unfair and discriminative treatment of Russian scientists, they are also extremely frustrated about what has happened, because they also didn't believe that this would happen. I'm pretty sure all of them believe this such a decision of the CERN Council and of CERN will never happen. This might be a statement, but they will never be thrown out and treated as persona non grata. And then this happened now, and I mean it's also unbelievable. There, I have been working with people on a publication in an experiment at CERN, and suddenly these people are no longer allowed to participate in a discussion because they have no longer access to the data. I mean, this is also from a scientific or intellectual point, it's a disaster. I mean, it means that intellectual property is questioned. I mean, all the contribution what these people have been doing to the common enterprise is suddenly we don't care.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not only damaging our reputation, but it also creates enormous frustration. But on the other side, where quite a few people already said, even if CERN would change now, we don't want to come back.
Yeah, the damage is done.
I mean, this will take ages to overcome such a damage. I mean, it's easy to cut the ties, but to build up trust and cooperation, this takes long. And for example, also summer students or students, young people are no longer allowed to participate in the summer student program at CERN and DESY. These are people who just are about to complete their university studies in the early 20s. What sign does that give to these young people that they are not welcome, they are not allowed to participate in an exchange program which is so helpful and so good for scientific cooperation? And these are the people who potentially will be scientific leaders in 20 or 30 years. And I'm sure they will remember how they were treated. So it's really a complete disaster, and I think it's extremely important to keep scientific ties and to even at a very small scale to keep cooperation and keep communication, that all this is not just gone, but has a future.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, on the one hand, this, well, we're seeing this is a societal phenomenon. On the other hand, it is one induced by state pressure or like perceived pressure, societal pressure. The This is also not necessary, by the way. I must point out that although Japan is usually counted into the camp of the West, Japan doesn't do that. My institute hired a Russian researcher just last year. I have a Russian colleague who was here 2 years ago in 2023 in order for a semester. Japan doesn't do that. This is a European, Anglo-American, America-European thing.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's absolutely true, and it's good that you point that out, because there has been also cooperation with KEC, with the Japan positron collider, where also people from DESY, from other countries participate, and they have clearly said they don't impose any sanctions in the experiment. So there is a way, and there are possibilities to say no. We don't follow that. Mm-hmm. And then this is extremely positive and extremely good to keep ties open. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, the question for us is what can we do as scientists on the ground, you know? And you already have now an initiative, Science4Peace. It's a forum, a homepage. I will, of course, link to that. I'm working together with others, among others, Jeffrey Sachs, on creating, on also creating something like that, on a forum for intellectuals and academics to exchange and hopefully also open that up
Right,
on a wider scale. But we need grassroots activities to
right,
to connect again what has been ripped apart and ripped apart by societal mechanisms, actually, not just
right.
by governments, but by a mania, a European
Yes,
mania that
yeah,
that opposes all and any form of cooperation and
yeah, yeah,
ties, right? People
yeah,
to people
yeah.
ties.
Right, right. I
Mm.
mean, there are also positive counterexamples. For example, we have just started or are about to start a workshop which is on particle physics, a purely physics workshop, but which has in its definition that there will be no restrictions and it will be completely online, such to for people from countries who are normally not able to participate in workshops to participate and contribute. And surprisingly, for me, it was a bit surprised that this workshop received quite a lot of positive reaction. That people said, "Oh, this is good. This is exactly what we need." And this is a workshop
Europeans,
with
German positive reaction.
Europeans, yes, and also from other countries.
Mm.
Uh, that that they have a possibility to participate. And this workshop is not connected to any of the research institutions. We made it completely independent as an initiative of scientists who are, of course, connected to research institutions, but it is not hosted. It is not financially supported by any research institution, such that they cannot impose any restrictions. And I think this was very essential for us. And we now even got very nice offers to publish proceedings of this workshop. So I think this is at least an activity of scientists against the policy of their research institution to say, no, we want to do science together and we want still to communicate without restrictions and without treating some people differently than the others. So this, I think, is a rather positive example where one can do something. And I think I believe it's becoming more and more important that initiatives on from scientists themselves or from the people themselves start independent of the governmental or political uh, restrictions, that people just say themselves, no, we don't follow that. We want something different.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yes.
and we need to build these
Right.
platforms also. Where this workshop that you're talking about, where is it taking place? Is it physical? Is it online? And what
No,
would
it's
be
purely online.
yeah, online.
It's purely online.
The question to us is like, should we try to build online platforms that are would be resilient against this kind of, you know, not
Right.
just against individual policies, but against conflict itself, so that it is a decentralized system, so that this can always be accessed by people who still want to access. I think that would be
Right.
necessary, wouldn't it?
Right. Then this would be excellent. Yes. Then this is one of the problems at the moment, that this is not yet existing in such a form, and there are quite a lot of technical things which need to be sorted out. And but then this would be excellent to
Like
have
a
something like that.
something like a decentralized file sharing system, but
Yeah.
for as a social network for people to keep accessing.
Exactly.
Because the problem is, even at the moment, the technology available is always linked to certain places, and if the switch is
Exactly.
flipped off, then the whole thing's
Yeah.
gone.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Mm,
Yes. This is. I mean, there is also the another thing what we just begin to discuss in the Science for Peace forum, That is, at the moment, we were just more rejecting changes in the policy and said, no, the way how things were treated previously was much better than what is being done now. This is, of course, a good attitude for the moment, but it is kind of not so good to have just a statement we are against this and this political decision. And what we are now discussing is to create a forum, to create build up a conference, a workshop where we get together people from essentially all countries, not on the political level, but on the scientific level, perhaps, to work out on a positive agenda. What is our aim for the future? How do we all want to live together in future, and how do we achieve that? First, independent of how it can be politically achieved, but just to have a clear mission. How can it be done?
Yeah,
And not
an image of the future, a positive image of
yes.
a peaceful future, which is far beyond just complaining. No, this is absolutely correct.
Yes. And I mean, also, it has to be clear. It should not be something which is coming from European, from Western country, or just industrialized countries who say it should be done that way, and the others have to follow that. It must be in a way that it is discussed on an equal eye level with accepting and respect of every group, everybody, and then that we develop a vision which is applicable to the whole world, not only for part of the world, right? The industrialized world. And of course, this is a huge thing to get into that. But I think this is something which would be important to have a clear goal, well defined, and then we can see and discuss how that can be achieved. How can we get the necessary steps to achieve that?
Yeah. No, you're completely correct about this. And also, I think now is the right time to do that, because we've been for 3 years kind of in a shock state of like trying to wrap our minds around what is happening to us socially through these forces of war. These are forces of war. This is the prelude to an all-out war, even larger war. I mean, there's war already going on, but just like with the First World and Second World War, it could grow. These things can grow. And if we are not careful, we're gonna have a third world war. And this, what we are seeing now, is the prelude to that. And now would be the time to actually try to work against this with positive visions for collaboration. And scientists could be, and they could be a very important neutral force in academics, a very important force of like creating these platforms and knitting us together again.
Exactly. Yes, I think the scientists or natural scientists should play a big role, but it should be also all the other science parts should also play a role. It's not only the natural science which is important, but also all the social and economic sciences will also play a role and should contribute. So the idea is really to bring people from all the different fields with all the different experience together to work out a kind of concept for the future.
Yeah, and with something, I mean, the good thing about scientists and academics in general is that they're often motivated not by money, but by actually they want to know, they want to figure things out. So if we create a forum, or if we create connections that allow for structured collaboration in order to figure things out, that would be a very strong intrinsic. It would create a very strong intrinsic motivation to use such platforms just in order to move forward with the research, right?
Right. Yes.
Um,
Definitely.
there is nothing at the moment, right? we don't have that kind of social platform.
Not that I know of.
Mm.
And so no, I just don't know. Of course, should look, but I don't know. Yes.
No, and I have this very strong feeling that actually maybe Russian colleagues could help us with that, because I must say, as a scientist, a social scientist on my end, some of the most important contributions to global knowledge, they come from the Russian or former Soviet sphere through things like Sci-Hub and Library Genesis, all of these pirate pages that then make scientific knowledge available again, because capitalism in the West has locked it behind paywalls.
Okay. Yep.
And this is most very important, that we have these pirate sites, which were all started actually in Kazakhstan and Russia, and this is a very important way of distributing knowledge. So we.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know about you, but I use Sci-Hub and Library Genesis on almost daily basis. They are very important.
Okay. No, I didn't use it yet, but okay, it's a good hint. Yes.
Anyhow, it's a different discussion as well. But yeah, we need to figure out how to insulate academia and exchange between academics and scientists from the passions of politics and passions of society of the moment. That's something we don't have. So even CERN is now a typical victim of this. I mean, as an institution, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes. So it's, yeah, I think we should really try to get this going, and try to work out a vision for the future, which is clearly against any war. I think which also has to be clearly respecting international laws and strengthening, even if there are things which can be done better, but strengthening also something like United Nations and these organizations from United Nations, because that I think is at least a forum where still there is some exchange and where things can happen.
Yeah.
I think one should really make use of all these structures and build something for the future.
Yeah, and something distributed, something where actually all members of all states have equal share. So it's not going to be that easy to break it apart anymore. The way that now Western science, which was basically is taking apart the system we've got, because it's built around these same power structures. Professor Jung, like, this is very interesting, and I'm very glad that you're doing this. I will also invite you to our next private meetings that we're going to have in our group on social scientists who are working on similar issues. People who want to join your Science4Peace, they should go to the homepage that I will link. Is there any other place where you would like people to find more resources?
I mean, on the webpage, there's everything what we have is available. There's a contact address, so people can contact me directly or just subscribe to the email list. So all the information is given on the webpage there. So this is the central place to get information on Science4Peace.
Okay. I will put all of that into the description of this video, and this video we will also translate that into 10 other languages, including German, French, Chinese, Russian, and I hope you can also distribute that to them, and they can circulate there, because what we need to do is we need to reconnect what has been ripped apart by very unfortunate forces. Exactly. Professor Jung, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for your time and the possibility to speak at the neutrality studies. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You're very welcome. See you next time.
Thanks.